Hi everyone. Today I thought I would share some somatic techniques with you on how to build a sense of confidence and agency using the body from the bottom up. Confidence is something that can be really hard to talk ourselves into using our thinking brain, but there are some postures and movements we can do with our body and areas of the body that we can become more connected to that can really help us feel a bit more of our agency, our internal strength, and connect to our confidence. So today you'll notice I'm sitting on a yoga mat outside on the ground, and I'll invite you to either sit on the ground or sit on a chair. Absolutely do not have to sit cross-legged for this exercise. Feel free to just find a comfortable seat anywhere that makes sense for you. Now, when we think about confidence in the body, what we really want to do is connect with our structures of power, of creativity, of agency, and this all starts with the hips and the pelvis. So the hips and the pelvis, these are our areas of grounding in the body. We ground through the pelvis. If we're not grounded, if we're feeling ungrounded and a bit out of body, it's really hard to feel our confidence. So the first thing we're going to do is bring a sense of grounding and connection into the pelvis and the hips. So I'm going to invite you to lower your gaze or close your eyes and first just spend a moment bringing some curiosity down the spine, all the way down into the hips, and maybe the first thing you notice is just where your sits bones are connected to your seat. So that point of contact underneath you, let's bring some awareness to that space where you're connected to the chair or the floor. Sensing that stability of that firm surface underneath you. If it's challenging for you to feel into this area of the body, then I'll invite you to bring your hands onto your hips and actually spend a moment just touching the outside of your hips. Feel for the different tissues and textures and structures there. Maybe there's an image of pelvis or the hip bones that you remember from a class at some point, and you can bring that image into your mind. Imagine what that's like in you. Just sensing into these areas. And when you're ready, we're going to start a little bit of movement, because when we bring movement into an area of the body, it further enhances and increases our ability to feel that part of the body. So I'm going to invite you to start making some very slow and gentle hip circles. I like to put my hands on my knees for this. If you're sitting cross-legged, you might join me in that. Otherwise, just let your arms relax. And we're going to start to just slowly rotate around the hips and pelvis. So see if you can let this movement come from the hips. Imagining you're sitting on the face of a clock and you want to rotate your hips all the way around that clock face, trying to connect with every hour. We'll leave a little time here for you to explore these hip circles. Just feeling how your pelvis can rock back and tuck under. It can rock forward and tilt forward. Noticing if you like even smaller, little tiny circles, or if maybe you're finding bigger, faster circles feels more comfortable. There's no wrong way to connect with yourself here. We're just exploring. What's it like to rotate your hips, to feel that surface under you? The different changes in pressure as you rotate from one sits bone to the other. Notice if you're breathing here, or if you've started holding your breath a little bit, maybe concentrating slightly too hard. Let that concentration go. Just come back to that sensation of your sits bones connected to the seat. And let's start to switch directions. Whenever you're ready, we're just going to rotate around the other way, whichever way you didn't do the first time. Softening through your tongue and your jaw can really support grounding here as we rotate through the pelvis. Let's do a few more. Just find some long, full breaths. as we start to wrap up this movement. And slowly finding your way back to whatever a neutral seat is for you. I'll invite you to soften your gaze here or close your eyes. And just bring some curiosity again down into your hips and pelvis. Connecting a bit more with the sensations there after the movement. In the yoga philosophy, the pelvis and grounding are connected with our root chakra, which is represented by the earth and the color red. So as you're just exploring sensation here in your hips, there's the option to bring in an image of the earth supporting you, holding you, that massive, beautiful giant underneath you. Or perhaps you like to bring the color red into your mind's eye. Another breath here, noticing what it's like for you to connect with your center of creativity and power. And then we'll let the hips go and we'll move into our second structure that we'll be working with today that can support our sense of confidence and agency. And that includes the spine, the shoulders, the neck, and the head. So you might notice that people who walk through the world with a lot of confidence, who are really feeling their agency, they walk pretty upright. Their heart might be forward, their chin might be slightly lifted. They're greeting the world with this shape. And for those of us, or at those times when we're feeling less like greeting the world and less powerful and confident, our shape itself actually changes. And you might notice either internally or even externally in the body, the shape starts to come in. That's more rounded, more hunched. It's as if we're physically shrinking and getting a little bit smaller when we don't feel like taking up that amount of space in the world. So you might find just in me naming that you're slouching a little bit, you're rounding, or that's a comfortable position or familiar shape for your body, and that's okay. That's very common. What we're going to explore today is inviting a subtle shift in that internal energy to start to be a little more comfortable with a lifted spine, a forward-facing heart, a gently elevated chin. And the way we're going to do this is by introducing a little movement in the spine. So I'll first invite you to start rounding into the back and shoulders, tuck the chin. We're going to exaggerate that getting smaller position. Really just feel how you can shrink when you need to. You can get smaller if need be. And this might feel unpleasant for some of you. It also might feel like the most familiar thing in the world for some of you. Just notice without judgment. And when you feel ready, from the inside of your chest, start to gently lift, elevating and lengthening. We're going to create some length through the spine, just gently reaching the crown of your head up toward the sky. Notice just for a moment, how is that? Comfortable, uncomfortable? And then we're going to let it go and get smaller again. Slowly, maybe even a subtle movement here. It doesn't have to be a big movement. Just letting that shape of getting smaller happen. And when you're ready, again, lifting and get a little bit bigger, brighter. Feel how you might take a fuller breath when you sit up tall like that. I'm going to invite you to move back and forth a few times here so that your body can get comfortable with both of these shapes. We can get small when we need to, we can shrink. We can also get big when we want to. We can take up space and feel into our power. You might exhale as you round here and inhale as you lift. Find one or two more rounds there just at your own pace, noticing if perhaps this movement has gotten a little bit easier as you've continued to round and to lift. And when you choose to land and let that exercise go, I'll invite you to sit up a little bit taller than you might usually. Let's feel into that confident shape in the spine. Notice if you can feel this length in the spine, the lift in the chest, and breathe. Can you soften the belly? Can you feel your sits bones grounding you, your pelvis rooting you onto the chair, readying your body to greet the world? Well, thank you all so much for joining in today. And I do want to add a little caveat here that for some folks who have experienced trauma, especially trauma around power, authority, control, aggression, even getting into a more powerful shape can trigger or bring up some perhaps unpleasant emotions or experiences from the past. So I just want to name that if that happens for you, or if you find yourself emotional at any point while you're exploring these shapes of confidence and power in the body, it's likely that this is just a natural bodily response to touching into something a little bit more deeply in your nervous system. If you need support or you want to explore anything that comes up here a little more deeply, feel free to reach out to me on my website, emilywintersep.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care.